So officially, let me welcome you, Tammy, to our Fresh Fiction Book Club. So happy to see you tonight.
Oh, thanks very much for having me, Samantha. I'm happy to be here.
So let's start off with something easy. For our readers that aren't familiar with you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you first get started writing?
Sure. I write under Tammy L. Grace. I use my middle initial, and I started writing almost 10 years ago. I retired and had always dreamed of being a novelist. And lucky for me, I had a long commute every day. So while I was commuting, I was plotting my first series in my mind, the whole time and was so excited. And I wanted to have something to do when I did retire. So it was just exciting for me to try this dream out and see if I could make it work as a second career. And so I started with women's fiction, and it's called the Hometown Harbor series set in the San Juan Islands off of Washington. And then I always, mystery suspense is my favorite genre to read. And I always wanted to write in that genre. And my dad's been a cop and in law enforcement his whole life. So we talked about all these cases and murdery things. And so I came up with another series called the Cooper Harrington Detective Series. And it's about a guy who's a bachelor detective in Nashville. He and his faithful dog are great companions. And so they're traditional mysteries, but they're on the cozy side with a little bit of a dog in there, but they're not a typical cozy mystery. And then I wrote several more. I've got about 35 books now, women's fiction, mystery, and several Christmas, sweet Christmas Hallmarky type stories.
Well, what's it like for you bouncing between all those different genres? Do you
Super.
find that you need tricks to get into the right headspace? Does it all come naturally? Just
I really like it. I was just talking to an author friend today, and I said I like writing a little bit in different genres. I get a little bit bored, I think, after a while. So I think it's fun to explore new. They're not diverse, it's not like a horror book and a sweet romance book. So they're not hugely different, but I have a lot of fun switching it up a little bit. And it's just like I don't know too many readers that just read one thing all the time. So it's similar as a writer to, I think, want to be a little different. And I know a lot of instructors tell you never to change genres when you're writing, but I've found it works for me. So I like it.
well, I mean, and you're right. I mean, we do often read across different genres, and I know some authors have worried, oh, well, my readers won't follow me if I
Right.
switch genres. That usually hasn't been the case for me and other members of the book clubs here. I mean, we do jump around. It's like, oh, wait, you write this too?
Yeah.
Well, let's check that out.
Right. Especially if it's a genre that, you enjoy reading. So I think it's an easy transition most of the time. And like I said, they're not crazily different, but I all my books have like the women's fiction and the Christmas stories, they're all, little veins of hope and family and friendship, are all woven in there. The murder mysteries are, murdery, but they do have a sense of family. There's recurring characters in there, and the detective, he was a lawyer turned detective, but he lives with his aunt who's real nosy and likes to stick her nose into all of his cases. So there's a lot of family and friendship woven into those too.
And of course, Gus is in there as the dog. I
Right.
mean,
You got to have a dog.
right.
All my books have a dog. I have to put a dog in every book, so at least one.
So, are you a pantser or a plotter? I'm always curious when people do write mysteries because I always think, well, surely you have all of this planned out perfectly. What is your writing style with that?
I'm more of a plotter. I'm not I have friends who, they'll have a 40 to 60 page plot outline. That's not me. But I do have especially for the mysteries, I have that very uh figured out as far as timing and clues. And I have friends that write mystery and they're like, oh, I don't know who the killer is until the end. And I'm like, okay, I don't know how you do that, but I can't do that. So I'm a little bit more of a planner by nature, so I think that just oozes over into my writing.
And is that also the case for Sisters of the Heart? Since it's a multi-book series and there's so many different things that are interwoven, did you
Right.
already have everything essentially in mind for the entire series, or has it been book by
Yeah.
book?
I did plot out the rough series. I knew all my characters well in advance. I knew the stories ahead of time. I wrote all the book descriptions, outlined each of the books, had all of that figured out. I had quite a timeline because these span over a long period of time. And I think when you're writing a real connected series like that, I don't know how you could do it totally pantsing it, I think you might write yourself into a bad corner there every once in a while. So I did have there's always a surprise. It's not like they're so rigid that there isn't room for like a character or an event to happen or something to happen. But I knew why they were there, what their backstory was, what their motivation was, what their biggest pain points were, and how those books were going to end before I started them.
Well, what was the inspiration for this series? I mean, because it does have such an intriguing tagline with, the six women, the 4 decades, one long reunion, but the fact that these were all foster children who had never met before,
Right,
and then they're all brought together. I don't
right.
think I've heard something like that before.
Well, that was my quest. I wanted to figure out something unique, to write about. I love writing series. I love reading series. I've always been an avid reader ever since I was a kid and got booted out of the library several times to go play outside, because they think you're not doing that enough. But I loved series. So I love long series and I never wanted to let the characters go. And so when I was thinking about a new series, I was really looking for something kind of unique. And I thought, sisters are a fun thing to write about in women's fiction because you have different characters that are sometimes have similar experiences. And I thought, wow, wouldn't it be interesting to, I think all my books start with that weird what if question. So I thought, what if these grown women who had been fostered by the same mom and never met all got called together for some reason, what would happen. And so that's basically how it started. And I wanted to write on a lavender farm. I knew that from the beginning. I like that area in Oregon. And so I thought, oh, that would be a beautiful place, a lovely place that I'd like to spend my days writing. And I think readers would enjoy reading. And then, so then I just went about, making each of these sisters of the heart their story and what would make them able to return to their family home, years and years and years later. And I wanted them all to be different ages so that they hadn't crossed, and would have different experiences.
And that's another thing that I really enjoy with the series, and it's something we've talked about in our book clubs before, is that we're always looking for those stories where the protagonists are different ages. Hey, it's great. We've read all the different stories where the main character is, fresh out of her 20s. It's
Right.
like, okay, it's great. But having women across a lot of different ages, and you have this in a lot of your books, writing with
Mhm.
women in various stages of midlife,
Right.
feeling too about that as a writer.
Well, I'm old. I think that's part of it. So I relate to, I don't relate to the people in their 20s or 30s. And I just think women like in midlife, I'm in my 50s, you have so much more experience in life. You've had a lot of peaks and valleys, a lot of joy, a lot of sorrow, and I think it's perhaps to me it's easier to write. It's relatable to me. So I think that's mostly it. When you're around like women, like my mom is in her 70s, and I always have fun spending time with women that age. They have a lot of wisdom and they have no fear. And I think that's some of it. When you're in your 20s, everything is you're worried, worried about what people will think or whatever. And you get to a certain age and that doesn't matter as much, and you're freer. You have great advice sometimes for people that are coming up under you. And so I think it's kind of especially with this, none of them had a true family. They had a family with their foster mom who was a saint, but they all had some hard times. So I think they were all looking for this sense of family always, and I wanted to give them that and have them have that sense. And so you have some that have a great experience at certain things. They all had a little different gift that they brought to their table. And Georgia, this is the woman in the reunion, she's the eldest of all of them, and so she has a different outlook on life than some of the younger ones. And I just think it makes for a richer story when you have all of those layers.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's true in the real world too, right? I mean, I can look across my friends and the age ranges that I'm close with.
Right.
And again, I mean, it's a span of decades in a
Right.
lot of these cases. And it's unusual sometimes if it's like, oh no, these are my friends that are actually the same age, but the others that is like, oh no, I know exactly who I need to call for different things.
Right.
And like you said, it's all the different life experiences.
Right. Right. And I think everybody has a different strength, so you might turn to a certain friend for a certain problem, or one might be, the one that's fun all the time, and one might be the more serious one. Harry is more of a problem solver. She's pretty serious and a problem solver, and she figures stuff out. And then, some of the others are a little more carefree and things like that. And I love all the animals. I wanted to, I love dogs, but I also brought in, there's some goats and some alpacas and all sorts of fun things, donkeys. So I had a good time with all that.
Well, and I think the other thing too, which is another theme I've seen in a lot of your books, where and we were talking about this some earlier too, it's about that pivot in life, right? And the different second chances. And so all of those different experiences being a bit older brings to the story, and being able to capture that for the reader of like, oh, no matter what things might have already happened, there's always hope.
You can always start
right?
again. Right. Right. And I think that's a lot of this whole series is there's that hope of a second chance. I mean, some of the women had some pretty tragic events happen to them that brought them to the brink, really, of depression at the very least. So using some of the other sisters and also using animals, I think there's a real healing power when you work with animals. And so one of the sisters is very tuned into that, as was the foster mom, as far as, the whole, when you rescue an animal, you think you're rescuing the animal, and most of the time the animal is rescuing you. And I think that's evident in some of, the experiences that these women have. So I think a lot of this is very relatable to people who have maybe had a shared experience. And I in fact, when you mentioned real life, I had a reader just write to me this week, and she said that when she went to church this week, her pastor's wife came up to her and told her she read this series, and her husband decided to start a group home for foster children who had aged out, and they were going to try and help them transition into adulthood. And that really makes a huge difference as an author when you hear something like that.
Oh, wow. Golly. And it's an area that is definitely needed.
Right.
Because you so often of kids that do age out, and
I
it's
know. And then what?
right.
I don't know how anybody expects them to just plunk into adulthood without a problem. So I think that's a real missing link. And oddly enough, that's in another series that I write. I had one of the girls that is a foster girl, started life as a foster child, and she grows up, and that is one area that she focuses on as a charity to get home, like group homes for aged out foster kids, so that they can, get scholarships and get a job and figure out, how life works, instead of just now you're 18, so go forth.
But with all of this, which comes first to you with the different stories? Is it the storyline? Is it the situation? Or is it
It's,
the different characters because they're
it's
so rich?
yeah, it's usually the characters. I spend quite a bit of time on characters. And so, I mean, I think that's what happened with this one is I was thinking about foster sisters. And so all the sisters kind of came to me pretty quickly, and the mom especially. And then I was trying to figure out, okay, so now I've got to weave in, weave that all together and make it into a story. But generally every book I write, the characters pretty much come first. I'm pretty character driven. The mysteries are more plot driven, of course, with whatever the murder is, but they're still pretty heavy on character as far as, the reader gets to learn quite a bit about the detective, and he has a backstory that's kind of interesting and quirky. And so that unfolds throughout the stories. It's not the main point of any of the stories, but little tidbits of his life unfold. So I think it's always characters.
And with that, do they talk to you? Do you see them in a movie?
Um,
Is it just you making notes or
I kind of do see them visually, I think. And I tend to, when I'm working on them initially, I tend to look online and get some inspiration, I have it pictured in my mind what they look like. So then I'll go and look, and I build like a little storyboard in Pinterest or something else, and kind of plot out what I think those characteristics are. And that way I think you feel like they're real. And I mean, when you're writing them, you really feel like they're real, and that you're spending that time and you're immersed in their life and you are right there. And, that's the goal. And that's what you want your reader to feel like they are with the character on her ride through these pages. And so I work hard to do that and hope I'm successful at it. But it's usually always, something with the character that gets me started. And as a reader, I know I was talking to another group, and I remember reading some very popular books that everybody was raving about, and I was like, I just don't even care about these characters. I don't care what happens to them because I don't like them, and they're not relatable. So I think as a reader, I will stick with a book that I like the characters with far longer than I will stick with some wonderful plot. That's
and
just
it's
me.
also so important for a series.
Right.
It's the characters which are then
And
making me want
make you want to read the rest.
book, right? I know it's going to get resolved in the story, but oh man, I want to really hear what's going to happen with these other characters and where are they going to write the book on this set of characters?
Right. Well, and that was what was interesting about this is the timing, to get them there. They're all called back to this lavender farm, but they all come at a little bit different time. So that I wanted each sister to have her moment, her shining story, so the reader could learn all about her. And then, the other sisters are there, but not the main focus, but trying to get them all rolled into when they would arrive. That was exciting to plot on a timeline. I have a lot of pages of timeline.
Well, and Tammy, I do also want to mention some of your Christmas themed books because we're getting into that time of year where we're all like, okay, send us the holiday books, right?
Right.
So obviously, when you're doing those, it's not Christmas time while you're writing them.
No.
So what are you doing to get in the mood for that Christmas cheer, basically?
Well, yeah, I love Christmas. I've always loved Christmas, so I'm a big Christmas fan. But many times I'll find myself writing them during the summer, like July. So Christmas in July, a lot of times they'll have that programming, which it does kind of get you in the spirit of snow and all of that. But yeah, I love Christmas, so I generally don't have too much of a problem slipping it. In fact, I'm working right now on a Christmas book for next year. I'm plotting that one out, but I just finished up a new Christmas book for this year that will be out in just a couple weeks. It comes out in November, and it's called
Oh,
Christmas.
awesome.
Yeah, so that will be fun. But and that one, it's called Soul Sisters at Cedar Mountain Lodge, and I actually collaborated with 4 other authors, and we wrote in the same world. And that one started also with foster sisters, where each one of us took one character. So I had the eldest foster girl at the time, and so those books follow her and her life as it goes through adulthood. But those are very fun. And we have a big celebration in my little town. I live in Nevada, in a very small town, but we know how to put on a Christmas. And so we have a great tree lighting. So I steal a lot of stuff from what we do in our town and weave it into stories. But I've written the one that I always tell people to try is called A Season for Hope. And it's based on a real life encounter I had in my little town. This woman was traveling through town. My husband's a mechanic and her car broke down. So she stopped to get it fixed, and it was a big, big problem. And she had, I think, 3 little kids with her in this car, and it was cold. It was right after Thanksgiving. And so he was telling me about her when he came home, and I said, oh, we should go and pay for their hotel for the weekend. So, because he was real concerned about her not having much. And so we went to do that. And in the process, we were trying to do it on the down low and not even tell her, but that wasn't working out. So we ended up talking to her, and she's like, oh, don't worry. I met a wonderful lady at Walmart, and she's going to let me live at her house until the car is fixed. And so anyway, it just went on from there, and I embellished, of course. Authors do that. You just get a little spark of something, and then you have to go with it. So she ended up staying here till about February because she got a job to pay for the expenses, and then the whole town heard about it, and they all started going in and donating to her car, repair bill and stuff. But anyway, I took that first encounter and turned that into A Season for Hope. So it's a fun story that I like a lot. But I wove a lot of Christmas stuff from our little town into it. So lots of fun.
Awesome. Well, Tammy, I want to switch over to what we call our fresh fiction facts.
Okay.
These are a series of questions meant to be easy off the top of your head.
Okay.
But sometimes we end up stumping people.
Okay.
Okay.
Now you'll probably get me.
Let's start off with something easy. Okay. Who would you most want to be stuck in an elevator with?
Ooh. Oh, I'd say my grandpa.
Oh gosh, I love that one. Okay. Yes. Okay. You're gonna send me down a whole other tangent with that. Okay. What is one new hobby or practice that you've picked up recently?
Oh, boy, I don't have very many new hobbies. That's a tough one. You've stumped me because I am the most boring person. I read, I write. I usually reward myself with binging BritBox. So I really can't think of anything exciting that I do. I walk. The one thing, I'll tell you one thing. I just bought my dog they're called Pet Fluent, and they're buttons to train my dog to use buttons to talk. So that's what my new hobby is.
Oh, well, okay. You're going to have to keep us posted on that. I have seen videos like that with dogs and cats.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to try it, but I haven't dug into it yet. So technically I'm not doing it, but it's on order. It's being shipped.
You have plans. Yes.
Right. I have plans, big plans.
What is your favorite writing fuel?
Tea.
Tea. See, I was expecting you to come back with chocolate.
Oh, no, I don't. I don't eat when I'm writing, which you would think I'd be a lot skinnier, but I drink a ton of tea. And I kept track usually hot, no matter the season. And so I kept track one month, and I have a private reader group on Facebook, and I did some little prize for who got close to how many tea bags I used for the month, and it was over 350. That's a lot of tea. Yeah.
That's a lot of tea.
That's a lot of tea. So tea is basically my fuel. Yes. Rocket fuel.
Again, the right group here. Yes. I'm sure we'll have favorite teas. Don't worry. But on the reading aspect, who was your first book boyfriend or girlfriend?
Oh boy, I loved I loved so many. It would probably have to be Laura Ingalls Wilder. That whole Little House series. I was really into that as a growing up. So I just loved all of those characters. I loved her her main character. I don't know that I had a real book boyfriend in that, but I was just in love with that whole series. So I just read, and I knew that and Little Women. Little Women was another one, and my whole family knew I loved Little Women so much that I think I got like 6 Little Women books all on the same Christmas because everyone knew I loved them. So those are my two.
Well, what is your most reread or dog-eared book now?
I don't tend to reread many books. I don't know that I've ever reread books as an adult. I still have Little Women, however, in my bookshelf. But I love to read mystery thriller. And then to me, once you read a mystery or a thriller, it's kind of like, okay, the
Kind of,
ending. So,
yeah.
but I'm a huge Debbie Maycomer fan. So I probably would have reread one of hers over the years, but she'd probably be the best.
Okay, you've been kidnapped, but they return you 3 hours later because you will not stop talking about what?
My dog. They would get tired of me. Just take her back. We don't want to hear any more about her dog.
That's it, huh? Okay, what bad habit has followed you since college?
Ooh,
Thing you
boy.
just can't get past.
Geez. I have to narrow that down to what probably an obsession with pens. I mean,
Oh
I
my
don't know
goodness.
how many pens I have, pens and mechanical pencils and paper. So that has probably haunted me since about first grade. You can go all the way back to that. So I still have that obsession. And if I'm looking at my desk right now, I see 4 pens right now.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at my big cup of different pens and pencils off
And
to
my
the side
latest
also.
obsession, I love these, they're called Ink Joy, Papermate Ink Joy pens.
Oh
Because they
yes.
don't smear, they're just great. So I love them in the colors and I use them for editing, but I use them for everything. So yeah, that's an obsession.
Okay, what road trip snack do you grab when you're at the gas station?
Pretzels.
Pretzels.
Yeah, I like
Okay.
pretzels, salty.
Okay, what's something that was lousy as a kid but now is awesome as an adult?
Hmm. I would say probably like green beans and lemons. I don't think as a kid I liked either one of those, but as an adult I really like them.
Well, yeah, and I probably request a lemon with everything now when as a
I
kid.
love, I know, I love lemon. I love lemon. So yummy.
What is the best advice that you've ever received?
Can never give up.
Yep. Okay. Do you listen to music as you're writing, or is or
No,
is everything good silent?
pretty quiet. I have a home office, so I'm generally in there, and I generally don't listen to music every once in a while. That's one thing I will do if I'm writing a holiday book and I really need to feel holiday spirit. I will play a little bit of Christmas music, but most of the time it's quiet.
What is your ideal paradise or ideal vacation spot?
Ooh, well, I'm real partial to the San Juan Islands off the coast of Washington, which was where I got the idea for that series. I love going to Vancouver Island in Canada, and my bucket list trip is Scotland, Wales, and England. I've been to Ireland, but I'd love to go to all of those.
I would highly recommend Scotland. We went on a trip there with people from the book club,
How
and it
fun!
was fantastic. Just
Well, I had it all planned out, ready to roll when COVID hit, so then I couldn't go. So someday we'll go back.
well, and the most important question
Uh-oh.
is, what is the best way for our readers to keep up with you, stay in touch, and find out what's coming next?
Well, I've got a website and it has all my books in contact, and it's www.tammylgrace.com. I'm also pretty active on Facebook. You can find me there, Tammy L. Grace author page, and I've got a private reader group that anybody can join called Book Buddies. So I interact there mostly with readers, and I've got a newsletter on my website, so you can always subscribe to that. It's right at the top, and that way you'll know everything.
And an additional plug for the newsletter, I know that if people subscribe, they can also then get their copy of Conversations with Dogs, right?
Right. I interviewed the dogs. Yeah, I had such fun. I interviewed the dogs for my books. And so yes, if you subscribe, you get a free little thank you gift, and it's fun. It's short and sweet, but it's fun.
And I can think of some people who are already immediately typing that in to get a copy of that.
Well, I hope you do. I'd love to have new readers. I always enjoy that.
Well, Tammy, thanks again for joining us tonight, but stick around for some of the happy hour questions with our readers after this.
I will. Thanks, Samantha.